Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for being here early. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me or if you have any problems seeing me. You guys know Mrs. Puckett and PJ, but I want to introduce you to the cats. That is Shelly and that is Luna. We are cat sitting for 6 whole weeks for a friend of mine. Her name is Jade. She is Backline Nurse on social media, and we've been having a great time. It's been quite a process. You know, the Pucketts had never been around cats before, so the first thing they wanted to do when they saw the cats was to hunt them and chase them and God forbid cause them harm. So they've come a long way with being able to sit in the same room with them and even cuddle at night. It's been really amazing. I figured the cats would probably be all over the place during this stream, so I brought some ammo here and I have some treats to kind of lure them back just in case they do run away. Here you go, Shelly. Here you go. And you might be wondering why Mrs. Puckett has that blue life vest on her. Hey, Andy, thank you for being here. So we're going to talk about that, what happened to Mrs. Puckett, some of the hatwork stuff, my new job, and it seems like everything is new since the last time that I sat down and spoke, and even since my last video. The last video I made was about a fundraiser I did for the Nashville Humane Association, and ever since I've been trying to make the next video about what's been going on here in Nashville, and it felt like every day I'd be working on it and then something new would happen and I have to put that in and then something new over and over again. So I thought this would be a fun opportunity to go live and just kind of talk to everybody. And hey Brian, hey Sniper, what's up everybody? That bookworm, hey, thank you for being here. That's so awesome. I did not know that was your YouTube name. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to go live and talk to everybody and show you the cats and let you know what's been going on in Nashville. So thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. Mrs. Puckett, some of you might have seen on Twitter, unfortunately got a pretty bad injury this week. She's run over 2,000 miles since I've adopted her, and we've gotten up to 20-mile runs now. Twice a week we've been running over 15 miles, so her runs have just been out of control. But unfortunately, we had an issue out in the forest on Sunday. She was running off leash, full steam ahead, and it looked like she jumped over some downed trees going as fast as she can possibly go, but didn't realize what was on the other side. And on the other side was a log with a strong branch sticking up, and she came down right on her chest onto that, punctured her skin, and it is just an ugly scene down there. It really is. We were a couple of miles out from the trailhead. She had to run all the way back, which she did. But then once the adrenaline kind of wore off and the shock wore off, we got in the car and she was just in immense pain. So the poor dog here really doesn't need this, I don't think, when I'm around. I just wanted to show you what she looks like now. She's supposed to be wearing the cone 24/7, but she hasn't been itching at it too much. But the poor girl isn't supposed to be walking or running for a full month. If you can imagine a dog that runs 50 miles a week, not even being able to walk. She has not been very happy. She's pent up and full of energy, and it's been tough to see. So hopefully she has a speedy recovery, and already it does look quite a bit better. I think we're 5 days since the accident now, and it looks quite a bit better. I doubt you can kind of see it at home, but hoping for a speedy recovery because it's been tough for her. I took PJ here out on our first run, which was just me and him, and we went out for a half marathon on Tuesday, and as much fun as that was, it was so heartbreaking to get all of my things together and prepare for this run, and then kind of have to shut the door in Mrs. Puckett's face and have to leave her at home. So it's been a tough week in that regard, but extra snuggles, extra rest, extra food, extra treats, extra everything for her, hoping she makes a speedy recovery. And the cats have been super sweet too. The cats have been showing her some extra affection now that she's calmed down. They can tell, I'm sure, that she's not feeling too well, and so can PJ. So she has been getting a whole lot of extra love. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Fear Rivers, thank you for being here. This is awesome. You know, every time I do one of these live streams, and there's 23 people here, every time I do one of these live streams, it's such a fear of mine, and I really shouldn't be afraid of this because I would still go live and talk if there was only one of you out there, because I love communicating and I don't have a lot of friends in my life. Most of you know that. But it's my worst fear that I would make and set up one of these videos and just nobody would show up and it would be just me. So it warms my heart every time to see that people actually show up, you know, to see a video like this that doesn't really have a set premise here. You're just coming to hang out and to chat with everybody and to see what's going on, and I love you guys. Thank you so much. One thing I did want to talk about, when I was posting on Imager, I would get sometimes upwards of 1,000 messages a week, to the point where it was just impossible for me to answer all of them. But since I've kind of been out of that platform for the better part of I guess 8 months now, I don't really get those messages anymore on any different platform. So everything changed last week though when my Twitter and Instagram and Discord blew up, and I bet it was probably close to 800, maybe even 1,000 messages I got from people, and this was all in regards to the hatwrks protest. Now, some of you who are in my Discord server, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about when I say hatwrks, but I'm sure there's a handful of you out there who kind of missed that controversy, which was right here in Nashville, right here in my backyard, and it just kind of blew up. It got my image and my it got me all over. I guess it was New York Times, it was ABC News, it was Washington Post. My mom called me one night and said she saw me on NBC Nightline or Dateline or something like that, and it just kind of got out of control. It was, I guess, a little 15 minutes of fame for me there, even though I didn't speak or even get interviewed there. It was really something else. It was hatwrks is it's a hat store. That's all it is. They sell hats in Nashville. They're one of a million places where you can go to buy like a cowboy hat or whatever and live the dream here in Nashville. But they posted an incredibly insensitive thing on Instagram where they were selling yellow stars of David that were intended to resemble the stars that Nazis often made Jews wear during the Holocaust so that they could be identified as Jews. And on these stars that she was selling was stitched in that said unvaccinated. And this really blew up more than anything I'd seen in a long time. I'm all over Twitter. I love seeing viral trends. I worked in marketing for a long point in my life, so I love seeing different things shoot off in every direction and seeing millions of people comment on them. But I hadn't seen anything like this blow up this big in so long. It seemed like it was 3 hours after that post that there were tens of thousands of tweets and tens of millions of views all across social media. And this was really because it wasn't an isolated incident. So now, whatever you think about that post and that product that she was selling, it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't an isolated incident, because if it was, it might have been time to educate somebody in our community who can't see why that's incredibly insensitive, and as some pointed out, perhaps even anti-Semitic. But that was not an isolated incident. What that did was brought to light what this store had been doing ever since its inception right here in my backyard, and that was promoting, advertising, and then profiting off of forms of extremism and hate. And that some, I would argue, some of these posts and products that she had were, if not worse, at least rivaled the ones that I just mentioned. So it was an amazing thing to see it blow up and to see everybody kind of go against it and everybody kind of band together on the internet, because you're going to find hateful pockets of the internet everywhere, right? Like, you've probably seen it on Twitter. I've definitely seen it on Imager. It's just part of the population, but this one, I didn't see this section of people agreeing with what she was doing. I didn't see these tweets or these posts where people were saying, this is no big deal, just let her do her thing. It was just, everything was against it. So we went out the next day. I got together with this local group to go protest that I actually found on TikTok. I'm not even active on TikTok. It was just a series of people messaging me where I eventually found out. We went out to protest this store, which closed down for the day with all the commotion. And this protest only had, when I was there, we were 30, 40 people top. There really was not that many people there, but it really, the images went so far. ABC News used my footage and my pictures from the event, and you can see me standing there with my MrsPuckett shirt on, and like I mentioned, all of these international news outlets, and it just went crazy. And it was interesting to see. I talked about in another one of these streams about how I kind of had 15 minutes of fame when I was younger for getting kicked out of school for a political speech, and then traveled the country giving speeches. And this was, again, in every newspaper in America, and in every nightly news or whatever it might have been. And that was so much different from now. Like viral marketing has gone so far for social causes. Because when that happened, that was all word of mouth, and that was all, the AP press picked it up, and once the ACLU got involved, they pushed it everywhere. But this was just one simple Instagram post by a woman who might have had a couple of thousand followers, no more than me, and within 12 hours, there might have been 1 billion people across the world who knew what was going on right here in my backyard in Nashville and banded together to try to stop it. And it was a really wholesome and heartwarming thing. It was. I'm not going to look back on this and think about what an insensitive thing it was, or think about all of the posts in the past and all the extremists that are right here in my backyard that you don't think about. I'm going to remember this as all these people that banded together to stand up for something they believed in, or maybe more appropriately to stand up against something they didn't believe in, and that was a form of extremism in my neighborhood. So I made a lot of contacts and a lot of friends by doing that, because everybody was so passionate about what they were standing up for, and it was just an incredible experience. I really felt rejuvenated by doing all this, by standing up for or against something, and finding people in my community doing the same. And it was 5 hours after ABC News used my photos, and everything went viral. This is not me, right? Like, I saw my effect, but everybody had this monster effect on this. So I'm not taking credit, but 5 hours after the protest, Stetson pulled their hats out, and all these other hat manufacturers pulled out and just said, hey, you cannot sell our product there anymore, which is really the end cause to kind of get this store to realize what was going on. And it was such a beautiful weekend, and it was so cool to hear from so many people after that say they saw me on the news. But it was the first sense of community I think I've had since I moved to Nashville, being that I moved here just before the pandemic hit, and now we're kind of opening things back up slowly. I haven't made this group of friends. I haven't had this sense of community, because everything I do here, I do it alone. And it was just such a nice feeling, and it made me feel so much passion. It made me feel so alive for the first time in a long time to be a part of a cause. And I know I do the fundraisers, and the supply drives and things like this, but this was all in person, which I think just made it feel all the more special. And it was just 1 week after the Nashville Humane Association, everything we did for them, the fundraising that many of you helped with, and the 5K we ran. And it was one of the most incredible weeks that I had ever had, because I felt like I was a part of something for the first time in a long time. So if you're still not sure what the heck I'm talking about with hatwrks, you can type that into Google and you'll get 30 million results, and you'll probably see me in half of them, which is radical, with my MrsPuckett t-shirt. And I couldn't wait to put a positive spin on it, because pretty much everything you see about it is negative, but I had such an amazingly positive experience by getting together with my community on this that I couldn't wait to put that kind of spin on it. So thank you for letting me talk about that. I want to see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Somebody says I should decorate Mrs. Puckett's donut to make it look fun. The poor girl had an actual cone. That's what they gave us at the vet. And this cone was like 3 feet long. And I've never seen a dog so sad in my life. Hey, baby. Hi. We got out of the car after the vet and walked into the house, and she has this cone on, and it just like, she had her head down, and the cone was like on the floor, and I've just never seen a dog so depressed. It was the saddest sight in the world, but she's definitely come a long way since then, that's for sure. Thank you, Annie, I appreciate it. Hey, Tony Walker, all the way from the UK. That's awesome you're here, man. Thank you. I'm glad you guys get to see the cats, too. I was a little worried that they would just kind of do their own thing this entire video and would not come by, so it's nice to be super cute and cuddly. It took a couple of days, maybe even a week when I first got here for them to really respond to me with affection. They both kind of hid when the dogs came in. I don't think they'd ever been around dogs before. And it was a really tense scene those first couple of days, so it's so nice to see them come together now and come close and always want to be around us and cuddle at night. I mean, if I could live stream that without being weird, right? Like crawling into bed with the dogs and then the cats coming up slowly after to cuddle up to, it's just the cutest darn thing. But recently had to stop sleeping here. I am at I'm at the cat's home right now. You might recognize this is not my house. I am at the home of the cats here, taking care of them, and they go crazy, absolutely bonkers at like 3 o'clock in the morning every morning, and I can't sleep. So I usually come here and spend the day with them after work, and then when it's time to go to bed, we'll make the mile walk home and go to sleep without them. But I love every second I spend with these cats, and I'm pretty sure that when it's time for me to go home and Jade comes back here to her home and with her cats, that we're gonna adopt a little Puckett cat, and hopefully one that I can take on adventures. I'm guessing they won't be able to run, but maybe rock climbing. I know people have been sending me these Instagram clips of like cats rock climbing and doing all these extreme sports recently. So you might see a cat sooner or later in all of these videos, and I'm really excited about that. And I guess the 3 a.m. zoomies are like a normal thing from the chat, so I guess that makes me feel better. It's not something that I don't know, that I'm doing wrong or that they're doing wrong. It's just part of being a cat, I guess. So that's funny. In addition to all the stuff with Nashville Humane and with hatwrks, I also got a new job a week and a half ago, I guess now. I applied for it some time ago. It's with the same company that I was with, but it takes me out of customer interaction and brings me up to their front office. So it's a pretty big deal. It's with the same company, but the promotion was huge. It was a 20% raise. It was an incredible schedule. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. now, and I have been for months for my job. Whereas this is a whole lot more normal. It's an 8 to 4 job, or 9 to 5, I guess, whichever one I choose. And I'm back at a computer instead of kind of running around this place all day interacting with people. So it's been super exciting. Training for something new and something that kind of this, I guess, employment went from just a job that I was working to pay my rent to the start of a career through this change. So that's been really exciting that I can now see this as a future instead of just as a tomorrow. It's not a job that I would probably stay in for 5 or 10 years because it's still there's still a ton of room for growth and something that I feel I can do a whole lot more and be a whole lot more valuable in bigger positions than I am there. But it's such a huge step for me. I mean, a 20% raise is such a big deal, and it's been going great. I love the training. It's very similar to a couple of jobs that I had worked in the past, with some notable differences, but something I feel so comfortable doing. And they asked me, they said in the interview, like, what was it? It was something about, during the busy times, you might have like a 2 or 3 hour stretch where you just basically can't look away from the computer. You got 3 screens up and you're working and you just have to get it done in a certain time frame. Can you look at a computer for that long? And I just kind of laughed. I was like, I look at my cell phone for like 8 hours straight on my days off. But also working as an imager mod, as you can imagine, with sometimes 1,000 images coming through in an hour, and you have to clear every one of those to make sure the memes weren't inappropriate or hateful or whatever they might have been. That was definitely not taking your eyes off the page for a long period of time. So the interview went awesome. I was able to relate so many of my prior experiences with this job, but not only that, I really pushed the supply drives and fundraisers and even the free pizza dude as a way of like kind of community building and working with all of these people, which I will have to do in my job now. So the interview went awesome. I heard back a week later that I got it, and I've been training ever since. It's been kind of slow going with the training because I'm still working the job that I was originally hired for in the morning, and in the afternoon going to training because they haven't quite found my replacement for that original job yet. So that's been super frustrating, but I'm hoping by next week I'll be full-time at my desk in my little office with my screens that I'll have pictures of my dogs everywhere. And some of you might have seen on Reddit that Hopeful Hope 521 sent me I guess a care package for my new office, and it had everything from like a little picture of me and my dogs that was framed to like thumbtacks and paper with dogs on it, like anything you could possibly need in an office. So that was the coolest thing ever to see that, because that's the type of stuff that I would probably put off buying until forever. So she's been so great sending me stuff like that. Yeah, the Puckett family definitely getting better. I'm taking suggestions on what the heck I can name a cat. I think the best one I heard so far was just Puckett, but I feel like that's too confusing for people who don't know what a Puckett is, so I will have to figure that one out. Come here, girl. Come on. Hey. Before her injury, they did something really special, and this was just a couple of 3 days, I guess, before her injury. They did their very first 20-mile run, and PJ did it too. It's something I've been bragging about every chance I get, because it even blows me away that these tiny, tiny little legs and this tiny little 12-pound dog made it 20 miles, and he did it in such a short amount of time. So it's definitely going to be tough not running with her, but I'm excited when we get back that we are so close to doing a marathon, which is only 6 miles longer than what they did, and I'm sure they could have done that during the 20-mile run, made it another 6 miles. I can't wait. It's just been such an incredible couple of weeks through the running, through the job, through the community building, just everything. I can't say enough that everything's been going pretty darn well. But with saying that, I mean, not everything goes well, right? Like, when we talk about everything that goes well, but we don't talk about the things that don't go well. And that's definitely, like, plenty of things that I've left on the back burner because I've been a little busier than normal. And that's simple things like my sleep has been just terrible. And that's starting to come through during my days at work and during my runs. And my house has just become this hurricane of madness with just stuff everywhere, and these are some early warning signs for me. Usually early warning signs of either an impending depression or chronic fatigue episode when I start to let things slip like that, and maybe stop, I'm not washing clothes as regularly, or maybe not taking showers enough. And it's all these little building blocks that kind of help me stay sane, help me stay sober for sure, start falling by the wayside. Even if it is for these incredibly good reasons, they're still falling one by one because I'm not allocating adequate time to myself through all this. Now you might say, well, you're doing the job thing, you're doing your running, that's all for you, and it is, but it's not necessarily for my own mental health. So there's a lot of things still that I can work on, and I didn't even plan to talk about this, but I guess it's important enough to be rolling off my tongue, is that I'm losing a little bit of myself by pursuing different endeavors at the same time. Because then when I get home, I just want to, I got home from work today and I laid down and took a nap right away until this. And then I'll get done and maybe run PJ for an hour and probably get way too little sleep tonight and won't have time to clean my place or do my laundry. And these things just have a tendency of building up until we recognize them. And that's the first step, which I guess I'm doing right now, is recognizing that I have an issue putting many of these things on the back burner, and I need to spend some time taking care of them before I turn a molehill into a mountain, I guess would be a good way to put it. So if you're going through something similar where maybe work has you too many hours, or maybe you've just been lazy, which I've certainly been there as well, and you're putting things off like I have been, maybe we can motivate each other, even if just intrinsically, to get some of these things done, to set ourselves up for future success and not just for today. I think it's something really important for me, and I've talked about in these videos before how my home, when it goes to hell and everything, there's just stuff everywhere. That's usually the first sign for me that I need to take a step back from what I'm doing and start to focus on myself a little bit more before the whole house of cards just comes crumbling down. So again, did not plan to speak on that, but I'm glad it came out, because now I know, I guess, what's going on, inside of me that maybe I just needed to verbalize, but never did. Blade said my dogs all just started barking at Mrs. P whining. That's funny. I didn't know you guys could hear her. Come here, girl. There you go. I mean, she's got so much pent-up energy. Like, I've never seen her like this, and it just breaks my heart. So they said a month without walking or running, but it has healed up so nicely. It really has. It looks so much better. I put it in the Discord server. If anybody's in there, you probably saw it. That I'll take her to my vet after maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks and see if we can get the go-ahead to start doing some light exercise and not wait that whole month. Because I'm just as impatient as she is. That is for sure. I miss my super calm, super happy dog, because she's really been neither of those things in the last week, and I don't blame her. I mean, if I had to abruptly stop walking and running all of a sudden, I would not be a very happy Abe. So I'm here for you, baby. we got some cat names. Somebody here said, well, gosh, Arnett said, I found the Pucketts from my child's hospital bed, and the pizza angel sent me love. Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I'm guessing you found us on the Imager. I hope the child's doing better, and what a strange way to find us, and I hope it brought you at least a little bit of joy. I know that can be a completely joyless experience to have a family member, much less a child, going through something medical. So I'm glad you're here. Annie Trout says, Puck Kitty? I guess, yeah. I feel like that's one of those ones, though, also like with Puckett, that somebody would ask their name and I would say it, and then every single person would say, what? You know, like, what did you say? I get that a lot as Abe, especially on the telephone, because I say, you know, thank you for calling my business. This is Abe. How can I help you? And people say, hi, Dave. What I need from you. And it's like, yeah, well, I guess I'm Dave now. But Puck Kitty, I like it. We'll see. Bladed Spokes asked, what was her injury? So the injury itself, I talked about what happened. The injury, the main part of the injury is the tissue damage. So thank God she had nothing internal, because it certainly looked like it from her wound. She has tissue damage and skin damage, which opened up pretty big. And in really almost any other instance, the emergency vet said they would have stitched it up. But they recommended not doing that actually this time, because they thought that the tissue, which was so incredibly swollen underneath that wound, would not have healed correctly if they would have stitched it up. So that made it a little more intricate for us, because now going home, you know, it was open instead of closed, which certainly brought a whole bunch of other challenges. But you know, the vet gave me a million options on what she could do, and I didn't know what she was talking about with any of it. So I just told her, you know, I asked if she had a dog, and she said she had 4 dogs at home. And I said, whatever you would do for your dog, just do for my dog, and I trust you 100%. So that's what she did, and it wasn't cheap either. I mean, I'm sure it could have been a whole lot more. I'm sure there's some of you out there who've had vet bills that are maybe 10 times the size of this, but for where I was in my week and my month and how much I'm paying in rent, this was a significant amount of money for me. It was not going to be easy. To be able to kind of put away the rest of the month and to really slim down on what I was buying for food, and it was going to be incredibly tough. And I didn't really mention any of that at all. I think this is probably the first time I mentioned how tough that was, because somebody on, I shouldn't even call her somebody on Reddit, because that's not what she is. I'm guessing she's here too. She is a great friend of mine that I've gotten to know more through Reddit. Paid that vet bill, really without a second thought, just asked me how much it was, and it was like 30 seconds later the money was in my account. It was such an amazing thing to, like, you know, I had all these things on my plate that day with her injury, and like wondering what I'm gonna do for a month, and then the vet bill, and like yeah, she took a really huge thing off of my plate, and it made it all a whole lot easier to handle. So if you're out there watching, I appreciate you, and for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, or who I'm talking about, I'll leave her anonymous and just call it just one of the sweetest people ever, and she's done so much for me. So yeah, that was kind of the silver lining, I guess, of that whole terrible day. Tony says, name the cat C4. The C is for cat, and they can be explosive. That's a pretty good one, especially because of these two cats, who I think of what they do at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're absolutely wild. Fear Reaver says, Lady Puckett. I do like that a lot, actually, but I worry that that'll get confusing, because Mrs. Puckett, I just call her Puckett. But Lady Puckett could be LP, I guess. We have LP and PJ. I don't know. Tom. Hey, Tom, thanks for being here, man. That's awesome. I don't know if I've ever seen your username on this channel, or if maybe I just didn't recognize it. Now I know who you are better, and I see it and recognize it now. So thank you for being here, Tom. He asked, how old is Mrs. Puckett? And she's about 5. They didn't know her birthday when I adopted her. They guessed she was about 4. So I put her birthday on the same day as my birthday, so we can celebrate it together. And that's August 8th. So she'll be, I guess that would make her 6 here in 2 months from 2 days ago. So she's coming up on 6. Amanda says that she notices her mental health falls apart if she lets herself fall out of habits and neglect by self-care. you summed that up perfectly. I think I used 1,000 words to describe what you just perfectly said in one sentence. So thank you, Amanda. That's perfect. Zella's here too. Hey, Zella, thank you so much for being here. That's awesome. Somebody, well, gosh, artist said Mrs. P was worth the struggle, no doubt, and that's a blessing. Yeah, yeah, she's been worth everything, and I got her at such an opportune time, and in PJ too, because I was working from home during the pandemic, and I guess I don't even know if I was working. Yeah, I was. I wasn't working full time when I got Mrs. Puckett, but I was at home. So, I mean, the whole first year and like 3 months that Mrs. Puckett was with me, I didn't work, and we didn't spend more than 8 hours apart that entire time. And it was so necessary looking back on it now and seeing how far she's come, that you don't really notice in the pictures and videos, but I can see in the day to day, because she was neglected for so long, and now and they didn't think at the shelter that she was abused, but certainly my vet now sees signs that she thinks that she was abused in her past, and seeing her open up and just become a loving dog after everything she had been through is just amazing. But I wonder not only how long that would have taken, but also if that would have happened if I was working 8 hours a day and still having to leave her home alone as much when she first came home. So it was such a blessing to be able to spend so much time with thee two dogs when they first came home. And now I'm talking about them, and they're not even on the couch with me. Like, this is ridiculous. Come on, guys. Come on. Come on. Yee-hee. Come on, PG. Come on. Well, at least she doesn't have to wear a cone. She's been pretty good about not picking at it. So some of you might have saw the Nashville Humane video. That was a ton of fun, not only to make, but everything that went into that. It was super cool too. If you're in the Discord server or in the subreddit, you saw last night that I found a picture of my dogs and I in a local newspaper that ran a story about that fundraiser, and that was such a cool thing. It was really the first I guess fundraiser that I had done for dogs, which I was really worried about because every fundraiser I'd done in the past was for humans. So it was, for shelters or underfunded classrooms or whatever it might have been. So I was a little worried that people might not be as generous as they normally are since they were dogs and not humans. But that fundraiser went so fast. I mean, I think we had 8 days from when I started posting it until the actual 5K, and to bring in over $9,000 like we did, it was such an amazing experience, and so many of you helped. I didn't even have time to make a YouTube video, which I planned on doing to encourage people to give to this amazing organization. It just all happened so fast, and then I got to meet everybody at the 5K, and everybody wanted to meet the dogs because they had seen all the imager posts and the tweets that I put out that was promoting them, and they wanted to meet the dogs that were a part of it. And I got to meet the board of directors and even the woman who is the head of the board of directors for Nashville Humane, who told me that she would sponsor me to become a board member in the fall time when there are some board member seats opening up. And I thought that sounded like the most exciting thing in the world. I don't really know what that entails, to be honest with you. I know it sounds pretty awesome to be on the board of directors for the Humane Association in Nashville, but I don't know exactly what the work entails, but it sounds like I have a pretty good shot to be able to do that. And what I can only imagine is a volunteer position. I don't know if it's paid, but just everything good came out of the fundraiser and the race. And I met so many people and other runners too, who I've since stayed in contact with and will eventually go on long runs with their dogs too. It was such an amazing experience, and so many of you helped out by donating and by sharing all the posts. I mean, some of those tweets got retweeted 40, 50 times by different people, and that's such a huge deal on Twitter, where on Imager, really anything can go viral, right? You get 10 upvotes in the first 5 minutes, and there's like a 90% chance that post will be seen by 100,000 people. But on Twitter, you're limited to your followers and limited to a small percentage of your followers who will actually be shown that tweet. unless bigger accounts eventually retweet it. So it's just a different world. It's a different planet altogether on Twitter, and so much harder to get something to be seen by people if you don't already have 100,000 followers, which I don't even have a tenth of that. So I really rely on other people on Twitter way more than I ever did on Imager. And people came through so big, not only donating, but sharing the post with their friends. So that was so incredible. Everybody was a part of that. I appreciate you so much. And I tried to do the video or tried to do a live video, but I just didn't have time. Everything went so fast. It was absolutely crazy. Hey, Baby Fart, thank you so much for being here, man. That's awesome. Says he is in Johnsonville. I don't know if maybe that's Johnsonville, Tennessee. I'm not sure where that is, but if you're close to me, that's awesome. I think I remember you saying your brother was somewhere not too far from Nashville. Baby Fart, who many of you probably know on Imager or know from these streams, I've talked about him before, is the best gift maker in the entire world and is well known on platforms such as Reddit and Imager and probably a lot more that I don't even know. So I'm happy to hear you. That's awesome. Well, gosh, Artist says hashtags. And I think I realized that for the first time with this hatwrks thing, because I had probably my most viewed tweet ever. I mean, I have like 6,000 followers and probably average like 4,000 views. But on one of these hatwrks tweets that I put out with the pictures that I had taken that day, I did this on Facebook as well, used some hashtags, and it was like triple the views of my like most seen tweet ever. And Facebook just blew up and ended up having like, I don't know, 1,600 shares of what I put on Facebook, which normally everything I do is private on there for good reason. But yeah, it just blew up with the hashtag. So I think you make an important point there. Is something that we don't really do on Imager and Reddit. The whole hashtag thing to be seen by more people definitely worked for hatwrks, and maybe it's something I'll have to do in the future. Maybe something for the YouTube videos too. The live streams are always awesome. All you amazing people show up. But if you see my videos and you see the view, like the view count like steadily go down and down and down from like when I started the channel to now, maybe something like hashtags on like Twitter would get a couple more eyes on it instead of the same people who see it, and many of you click on it, and I love you for it, but I think people kind of get in the routine of like, oh, I don't have time right now, I'll watch it later, or I'll catch his next one, and it's easy to put that off, because I do the same darn thing, right? Like, there are a handful of people that I've met on the internet that I follow now on YouTube, and when they put out videos, I definitely make an attempt to see them, but I probably miss more than I see, just because if I don't, if I don't feel like I have an adequate 30 minutes to give to them, I just won't even watch it, and I'll put it off, and then I'll forget about it. It's just who I am, and it's who a lot of people are. So maybe hashtags would do something to get some more eyes and some more clicks on it. Well, thank you guys for telling me, because I didn't even notice. She's not licking the wound, at least. That's one thing I have not seen her do yet. The wound is up here on her chest. So at least it's not that. Tom says, don't expect cats to respond like dogs to your calling. You know, I found that to be true with one exception, and that's when we're laying down. So like if we're in bed and the cat is down by my feet, I can call either one of them and they'll come up and like give me a little face snuggle. But if they're in the other room and I'm trying to get them on the couch, that is an impossibility. And you might have noticed when this video started that I put some cat food up on the top of this couch just so they would be in the shot. Because I didn't think they would come and hang out. So they're definitely more stubborn, I think, than the dogs. The dogs just want to please, they want me to be happy, where I think the cats maybe just want themselves to be happy. I don't know, but it's like moments like this, right, that just kind of make it all worthwhile, because she doesn't do this very often. So that warms my heart. I love you, Luna. She's the cuddly one. K-Pass says, YouTube algorithm favors videos in the 8 to 12 minute range. That's interesting. That's something I never thought about. And there's probably a whole bunch of factoids like that I'm just completely ignorant about, because I don't really, don't tell YouTube, but I don't really watch YouTube, right? Like I would much rather go on Hulu and watch some ridiculous show for 30 minutes than kind of browse through and find something on YouTube for whatever reason. So I probably could learn a lot more if I was serious about growing the channel and using things like not only hashtags, but keywords and titles and descriptions and things like that, which I just don't really do now. So that's a good point. Thank you. That's Thomas. Yeah, and one thing I wanted to do at first with the kitties was make a video about it, because when I walked in that first day with the dogs, the cats went and hid, you know, and I didn't see them for like 12 hours, and the dogs were just in full-on hunt mode. And it was so awesome to see that progression where they slowly stopped being afraid of each other, and then started getting closer and closer, and eventually cuddling and playing. And now when we walk in the door, the dogs and I, after work, walk in the door to Jade's apartment where we are right now, the cats will just kind of saunter up like real slowly and just go nose to nose and just boop, I guess, for a moment, both dogs, and then kind of run off and do their own thing. But it's just the cutest thing to see them say hello and lay down next to each other right now. It's amazing. I guess it makes it a little more special that they're cats. I saw the same thing with PJ, you know, because Mrs. Puckett didn't take to him right away. It took them quite some time to actually fall in love. But with that, I was more confident that it was going to happen. I kind of thought that here, I think I've been in this apartment now for 4 or 5 weeks. I think at the start of this project, or whatever you want to call it, that I thought that the dogs would still be trying to kill the cats at this point, 4 or 5 weeks in. So this has been more of a pleasant surprise. So now I get this feeling, and one thing I wanted to mention, like, with the projects like Nashville Humane, especially, and like we did the women's shelter and the supply drive for them, is that I get so high off of these things, for lack of a better term, right? Like, they make me feel so good, and they make me feel like I really did something. Where like most of my life I never had that feeling of accomplishment, right? Like for like 33 years I feel like I didn't accomplish anything. So when I do these, I feel like I did something really important, and I get so happy and so high off of that. But as the days go by afterwards, I get these like really weird feelings. We've talked a little bit about imposter syndrome before, and I don't know if I would call it that, but it's more like feels like I'll never have anything else like that again. And it's a really strange, like, melancholic feeling, like, yeah, I did something awesome, but I'll never be able to do that again for some reason. And I mean, I got that after the first fundraiser I ever did in Supply Drive, which was in like 2019. This was like 3 years ago now. But it keeps happening over and over, because it's this roller coaster of, like, you know, putting something together and having this fear that nobody will help, and then people are helping, and I'm so high, and it's a complete success, and I'm riding that wave, and then it's over, and I wonder if I'll ever think of something again, or if anybody will ever help again, or if I'm completely washed up and nothing will ever happen. And I feel like I'm in that like that ditch now, where I'm like in between two awesome things, and it feels like I'm so far from the last awesome thing, and it feels like the next awesome thing will never happen. So I don't know if anybody can relate to that at all. That the only way I see to kind of combat that is by doing something like that every day of the week, which just nobody has energy for, right? Like, you can't be putting yourself out there, you know, overspending your time, I guess you could say, and overspending your energy. But when I'm not doing things like that, I feel like I feel like maybe I'm not. PJ, you're totally not helping my train of thought, buddy. All right, computer bumps. There you go. I feel like, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if I'm not doing stuff like that 24/7, it feels like it'll never ever happen again. And then when I am doing things like that 24/7 and putting all this effort into it, I'm getting so like bogged down and not taking care of myself. I've struggled to find this kind of happy medium in that, where I can do things like that and help and have the sense of community and giving back, but then when I'm done, not get so low as I do now, to feel like it's never gonna happen again. That like like the best ones are behind me, right? Like I'll never be able to do something like that again. So that's a strange feeling that I've never really, I guess, put into words before, which I think is why I'm kind of blabbering on about it. Um, but it's definitely a weird feeling. My buddy said that I should I don't remember his exact words, said I should start some type of nonprofit that gives, you know, that basically gathers charitable funds and then distributes to local causes, which I don't know the first thing about. I don't know anything about a 501c or anything like. Um, but I thought that sounded so cool. Like, what if I could do that as an actual job? You know, do a job that's actually does something good for my community instead of like, you know, what I do now, which is fun. You know, I work in accounts payable for a place that I love and I think does some good, but I don't think my job is giving back to the community whatsoever. I don't think I've ever had a position where I've made money and like supported myself by doing something good in the community. And I guess that's maybe like I don't want to call it a pipe dream, but it's a dream that just kind of seems impossible at this point, I guess. But would be pretty awesome to do. The cats are fighting in the corner. I don't know if you can hear them. But yeah, it's that interesting feeling of just a roller coaster ride, going through these things one after one, and I think it's why I put so much time in between. Like we did the women's shelter in late February or March, and then I didn't do anything else again until late May. And it's just giving that adequate time to kind of bounce back from that low. It's a really interesting and weird process that even though I know it's coming, there's just nothing I can really do to stop it. Yeah, it's a kind of a bipolar feeling, I guess. I'm not sure any other way to put it besides the ups and downs of life, I guess. Tony said, the skills you learn and gain from your campaigning work will always stay with you. You will not lose them. Those skills are always ready to be used. That's a really good point. I like that a lot. And I talked about that in my sobriety video. When I had 3 years of sobriety back in March. I had 3 years of sobriety back in March. And I made a video, and I think for the first time looked at some of the rehabs that I went to and failed. You know, stayed in a rehab for 6 months without my dog and put my entire life on hold for a half year, and then get out and just get hammered again. It seemed like a complete waste of time and energy. But making that video, it's the first time I really realized that every rehab and psych ward that I went to, every rehab and psych ward that I went to was part of the process, right? Like they all eventually added up to me becoming who I am today, and most importantly, to becoming sober. So they weren't wastes of time. They were just, you know, stepping stones on the path. And without any one of those failures, I might not have eventually made it in the end. So that's a really good point, Tony. I like that a lot. Hey, the free pizza dude is here. Look at that. For anybody who sees the gentleman in the chat that has the pineapple as the icon, that is the guy I handed off the free pizza dude project to on Imager. Murphy's Pandora's Law Box, I think, is his actual username. But that's awesome. Thanks for stopping by, man. That's awesome. They're still killing it over there every single Friday. I'm still in the Discord server, even though I'm not really active sending pizzas out. It's been a while, I guess, since I've sent one. But they've got to be getting close to 6,000, I think, at some point here, and 400 grocery orders. I haven't seen the numbers in a while, but they've just been doing amazing. I've talked about them, I think, quite a bit in past streams, and they've been doing awesome. If you guys see them on Imager, give them an upvote. Well, gosh, Ardit says an angel fund. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean that would be essentially just what we did as Pizza Angels, right? As the free pizza dude, where people, complete strangers, are donating to a cause to other complete strangers. So it's funny you use the term an angel fund. Thank you for stopping by. Don't worry about taking off. I appreciate you being here. Have a good night. The dogs are starting to get restless. So yeah, it was speaking of that sobriety video. I feel like that was such a huge part of my life for like 3 years. I felt like that looking back, okay. Looking back on that video. Okay. Looking back on that video in that time of my life back in March when I hit 3 years of sobriety, I can see. Okay, come here, buddy. Come here. I got you. I feel like sobriety was a part of my everyday life up into that point, and it was like something like something flipped the switch at that, and I don't know if it was making the video or if it was actually hitting that 3-year mark or hearing from all of you and all the comments and DMs I got about that. But it was like as soon as that was over, in March and like into April, I feel like it's been the easiest thing in the world, I guess. Like I feel like I haven't had a single thought about drinking or using drugs. I haven't had a single like nightmare about being homeless, which I've talked about in many videos. That's the first thing I think about when I wake up, and how terrified I am of that phase of my life. And I feel like I got so much closure during that time this year, whether it was making the video or just being the 3 years. I think it was a little bit of both. That it just kind of turned a lot of things around for me, where I wasn't concentrating on it or even like white knuckling sometimes. Some of that, like on a Friday night at a baseball game with my friends, everybody getting hammered. It just wasn't in my mind anymore, and it's been such a easy and calm and tranquil thing now that I don't know. I guess that's probably how I would describe myself in those first 3 years. If you'd have said like, "Who is Abe Switters? Like, who are you?" I think my first thing I would have said was that, well, I'm in recovery. And then God, I have dogs, I live in Nashville, I like to run, yada, yada, yada. But now I wouldn't probably even put that in like my top 5. And it's not to say I'm not proud of that monumentous accomplishment, because it's huge. It's the most important thing I've ever done in my entire life, was get sober. But I don't know, I guess I just feel so much more comfortable now in it that I've been able to kind of have this frame of mind of, I didn't fail for 17 years of addiction. I was succeeding for 17 years, but very, very, very slowly, and to the point where I could, ultimately just succeed in the end and become sober. But those first 3 years, first year was so tough, and even the second year was tough, and the third year was still so much about recovery. And I watch these videos and look back, and I think every single video that I had made up until that one, I had spoken something about recovery or something about my addiction. And I think the Nashville Humane one was probably the first one that I that didn't go into depth with that I didn't like make this big deal out of it, because it's still a part of me, but I feel like it's just, I don't know, I feel like I'm more than just that now, I guess would be a good way to put it. It's not that I'm not sober Abe anymore, it's just that I'm so much more than that. I don't have to focus on that anymore. I don't have to think about it as much anymore, and thank God I haven't been dreaming about it either. So it's been very therapeutic, I think. Definitely therapeutic making the videos, and then putting some space between me and those videos to kind of see how far I've come. God, if I had this YouTube channel that first year of recovery, I'd probably now be like deleting all those videos because the stupid stuff that I would have been saying. So I think this all came about at a perfect time for me to be able to grow as a person, and that wasn't planned at all. It just kind of happened. I left Imager, I needed a new platform, but the timing, I guess, without me knowing it, was just absolutely perfect and serendipitous by all means. Tom says, I think those feelings are normal. Feeling good for one's accomplishments is what humans do. It promotes a repeat performance. And yeah, that's definitely true. I guess one thing I would like to work on is not falling so far from that to where I feel so isolated from that performance, I guess, to like it'll never happen again. Amanda says, if you don't mind me asking, any advice for how I can support my friend who recently had a relapse? I want to support him as much as I can, but I don't want to slip into enabling or codependency. And that's a really good question. And honestly, I mean, you'd think I'd probably have an awesome answer for that, but I don't know that I do, because every friend that I had that was using, and I um, lost five of them. Five of them that died because of using was all during my own addiction, right? So since I've got sober, I haven't had friends that are using drugs and alcohol, or I should say, like stuck in that cycle and are addicted. So I don't know that I've ever been in that situation, but being as the person on the other side of that, I can definitely say that one of the main things, and this kind of may sound harsh, I guess, but um, support support any way you can that's not financial. Um, Anytime in now 17 years, if anybody, like if my parents gave me $20 because they knew I didn't have food in my cupboard, I was going to buy $20 worth of gin and not eat for a week. And eventually they grew knowledgeable to that and would do things like give me gift cards to Subway or to the grocery store, things that didn't necessarily have monetary value but could still be used in exchange for goods and services. Um, and that's only if your friend is struggling with finances, which many people, especially in stage addiction, most people are. But beyond that, it's just being there for them. I think a lot of people. I think I took offense to it when I was using, when people were too in my face about it. Like if they would stop by unannounced or they would be calling 20 times a day. I think it's. I don't know if you guys just heard. We just started a thunderstorm here in Nashville. That was wild. I think it was more important for me to know that somebody was there for me than to have them constantly show it. I wanted to be alone most of that time when I was using because I was ashamed of what I was doing. And having somebody in my face, saying they were there for me and they'll do anything didn't necessarily help that. So I think for me, instead of like having somebody call and want to talk for an hour or stop by unannounced, a simple text went so much farther than that to just say, like, hey, if you ever need anything, I'm here for you. If you need food or you need clothes or you need something like that, I'm here for you. Or if you want to go to a meeting. Some of my first meetings I went to, AANA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, I went to with people who were not addicts. They were just friends of mine who were incredibly worried about what I was going through, so they took me. And I never would have made it to my first meeting if it wasn't for them. And eventually I can say the same about rehab. I was brought to rehab by my girlfriend who didn't know the first thing about alcoholism or addiction, and I never would have started that process without my ex-girlfriend. So that's definitely something you can do too. Is say that if you would go to a meeting, if I went with you, that would kind of soften the blow. Then let's go do that. Because sober people can go to these meetings. If you look them up online, they're listed under two categories usually, and that's either open or closed. The closed meetings are meant for just people going through addictions or going through recovery, whereas the open meetings are probably the majority, maybe like 80-90% of all meetings anybody can go to, whether they have an issue or not. So that's a big part about being there for someone. It's not just being there to talk on the phone, but being able to take them places. And hell, I know, like, my sister took me to detox at least 20 times. I mean, I went to detox in St. Paul alone 28 different times, and the only reason I know that number is because I'm still paying those bills. But she was usually the one that took me, and I don't know if she's had a drop of alcohol in her life. So that was huge to have her there. Whether she was at work and took off or whatever she was doing, she would drop and come pick me up and take me to detox if I needed it, and then she would be there 72 hours later when they kicked me out. So those are a couple of pretty darn simple ways, but ways that maybe not everybody thinks about, that they can help somebody with addiction that doesn't involve money or enabling them in any way. Because certainly I think my parents enabled me for the first, I don't know, forever, I guess, until the last couple of years of my addiction. And my whole family and friends too were always enabling, and that's, you don't often see that when you're enabling somebody because you just want what's best for them. But addiction's just a different monster, and that what's best for somebody who's not an addict is not what's best for somebody who is an addict. So just look at it as helping in any way you can, but making sure that help doesn't get them a bottle or a needle in any way, shape, or form. So, and just by asking, I think you're taking the first step, right? Like, you want to help, and that could be something that you say to them too, that you want to help, but you don't know how. So I asked this dude on a live stream, like, what would he do? And if somebody said that to me, I think that'd make me feel really warm and invited, and it felt like somebody was going the extra mile for me. So. Lucky Strike says, stumbled on this live stream while browsing. I don't interact much, but I'm one of the silent minority who's happier in the world and really appreciates the difference you make for people. That's the nicest thing ever. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Lucky Strike. I don't know if you just found us on YouTube and have no idea who the heck I or any of these people are, or if you just randomly found it on like Twitter or Discord or whatever it was, but I'm happy you're here. It makes me super happy that there's still 22 people in here. That's so cool to me that people are here. I love talking, and I hope to God one day we can all sit in the same room together and actually do this face-to-face where I'm not talking for 2 straight hours and you're not typing, that we can actually talk back and forth. And I mentioned this, I think, in the live stream, but I probably just forgot about it until right now, and that it would be super cool to set up a Skype session sometime. You know, I don't know a ton about Skype, but I imagine we could have 20 people on a call, or, you know, at least maybe 6 or 9. It could do something like a check-in. I do check-ins from time to time in my subreddit, which is just a way for people to talk about what's going on in their life, to talk about their struggles and their successes and what they're looking forward to or dreading in the next week. And I always thought that would be a really cool thing to do, seeing each other's faces and hearing each other's voice. So to set something up like that on Zoom or Skype, I think would be such an awesome opportunity. And the subreddit, Mr. Puckett, would be an awesome way to promote that too. So hopefully I won't forget about that this time, and I'll look into Zoom or Skype and see if that's something that we can set up and hopefully set up for free as well. Dragoon, welcome. I'm not sure I think I've mentioned this before, the YouTube usernames, everybody's username is different than who they are on Discord and on Imager, so forgive me if I don't know your YouTube username. It doesn't mean I don't know who you are. Sydney, welcome. Thank you for being here. Angela says, when my brother was quitting, I listened and didn't treat him differently. He thanked me later for not showing him pity or acting differently. Oh, that's interesting, because it is. I mean, you get this overwhelming, or I got this overwhelming sense like everybody was looking down on me, and that's why I always wanted to be alone. I mean, I would spend months where I might walk my dog around the block, but I wouldn't leave my house. A lot of people look at alcoholism as somebody at a bar taking too many shots, but man, it was like the last 12 years of my addiction that I wouldn't dare step foot in the bar because I didn't want anybody to see me on 64 ounces of gin and just, I mean, that's not drunk. That's completely, you know, unable to walk, and that's at 7 in the morning and 7 at night. It's all day long. So it's that overwhelming sense that if people will see you, they will hate you for what you will become, and I think pity is probably another way to put that as well. So yeah, I like what you said, how you didn't treat your brother differently. You listened, and then he thanked you later for it. I think that's a really good way to put it that maybe I didn't think about, that might have gotten me out of my house more, and that's something that kept me in my house and kept me in my addiction for far longer than I needed to be, because I turned down so much help just because I didn't want anybody to see me and to see what I looked like and to see what I acted like when I was completely inebriated, which is what end-stage addiction was for me. I guess 6 years of waking up, or at the very least 5, of waking up and taking 7 shots and being out of control every second of every day, and not out of control as in like throwing stuff and like being violent, but out of control as in not being able to walk or not being able to hold a sandwich or whatever it might have been, just having no control over my own body. So yeah, anything you can do to get somebody out of their home, I would say would probably be a good thing too, especially if they're going through what I was going through and not wanting to be seen. I noticed in the last stream, I missed a lot of questions. It's really hard to keep up with the chat, but and like talk and like keep my train of thought. But there was a bunch of people who was asking what the heck I was drinking. I think I had a see-through bottle last time, and it's green. And so I get that question a lot because I drink green water all day long, and it's like a blue-green. And I touched on this in just one video, a day in the life of the Pucketts. But I drink algae, algae all day long. If you ever heard of spirulina, which is probably the most common one you'd see in any health food store, or all over Amazon, chlorella would be another one. It's just an edible algae, and I would call it, and many people would call it, the most nutrient-dense food on the face of the planet. But it just doesn't get a lot of love because it tastes like algae. It tastes like a fish tank, to be perfectly honest with you. But I've been drinking it for a decade, so for me it just tastes like water. It gives me energy, makes me feel awesome. I absolutely love it. Algae all day, every day. Thank you for being here, Well Gosh Arden. I love it. Your username is great, even if I struggle to say it every single time tonight. That's awesome. So one thing I also struggle with, when I was touching on how I fall so far off of those supply drives, and I get so high, and then I kind of come down, is that sometimes I feel, and let me know if you feel this way too. Sometimes I feel like I have to have something to look forward to every day of the week. Like like tomorrow, I don't have to have something tomorrow that I'm gonna do that's gonna be radical to look forward to. But to be able to like kind of be okay at work and be like the happy-go-lucky dude and like tenfold, right? Like when I'm at work, I like kind of embellish a little bit. I'm like super duper upbeat, more than you even see in these videos. And but to be that way, like I need something to look forward to, and I think that's part of it why I fall so far off the supply drives. Because if I don't have something set up for the next one, then I feel like I don't have something to look forward to. And that's not just supply drives, but I feel like there's so little else going on. I mean, I was looking forward to this job, right? I got the job, and that was radical. But like, what's next? You know, like I'm going to a food truck festival this weekend. That doesn't really get me stoked. Like I don't know. I guess it's this overwhelming feeling of like kind of being lame, that I don't have to be doing something 24 hours a day, because I hate that. I love my free time. I love laying in bed, but I have to have something to look forward to. And I think that's what I'm missing a lot of the times when I go in these downward trends, is that I don't have something to look forward to. And that's might be a bad way to put it, because tomorrow's going to be awesome. I'm going to keep training for this awesome job. I'm going to take little PJ out for a long run. Like, we're going to do some cool stuff and make some cool food and like meet some new people at work, and that's going to be awesome. But it's not like something that I would, look forward to. I guess it's not an event. It's probably not something I would remember in 10 years. And I think that's the struggle of living in contentness, of not, not being a 0 and not being a 10, but being a 5 and like being okay with it. And sometimes I'm just not okay with it, especially coming off these last couple of weeks. I mean, I started this video talking about all the awesome things in my life, and I don't know if that's really what I planned to do, to like brag about all this cool stuff, but it's kind of what I did. But then it's just like, it's always what's next, and if I don't have that what's next, like I don't have right now, then I kind of question what I'm doing in life, and wonder if something good will happen next. And I know that's ridiculous. It's an irrational thought, but it doesn't make it any easier to kind of deal with. And so much happened even before that. I had the woman in my life for some time who came and visited. I talked about it in the last live stream. This amazing woman, and there was just like so many things that went awesome, and they were just incredible. And I couldn't wait to tell everybody I knew for a long period of time. And now it kind of seems like those things are starting to kind of calm down and bring me back down to a normal level, to a 5 instead of a 10. And I don't know, it just makes everything a lot harder if I don't have something to look forward to. It makes waking up at 3 a.m. a whole lot harder, dude, because, I mean, tomorrow is just going to be a normal day, and next week's going to be a normal day, and next month and next year, unless I find something to make it incredible, and I just haven't done that yet. So, I don't know if that makes any sense or anybody can relate, but I think that's part of that downward spiral coming off of these big events, is just wondering if they're ever going to happen again, right? Hey, Kristen made it. What's up? Thank you so much. That's awesome. And I think you've made it every one of these. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here. Murphy's Pandora's Law Box asked if I ever drink chlorophyll. So that is an interesting question. So I mean, algae is full of chlorophyll. So in that sense, yes, but I'm guessing you mean like extracted, like just chlorophyll. And that I don't, just because I drink so much oat grass, and algae and wheatgrass too that have these like high amounts of chlorophyll already in them. I've never actually bought like a chlorophyll pill or powder before, which can be super advantageous. I mean, I know it's got plenty of health benefits too. I just usually find it's better to do something that's a little more full spectrum, like an algae that can offer a couple of more things besides just chlorophyll. But there's nothing wrong with it, and if you're thinking about buying it, trying it, I would definitely encourage that for sure. Especially because that's going to be a little bit easier on your palate than algae is. I mean, if you can like imagine like opening up a fish tank and like putting your face inside with a straw and drinking, that's kind of what it tastes like. Whereas chlorophyll, I mean, it kind of tastes a little more like grass, I guess, to me, like an oat grass or a wheatgrass does. So it's a little easier, and I feel like it's a step down from something that's a little more harsh. Hey Thomas, thank you for being here too. That's awesome to see you. Kristen says, being unemployed and dealing with anxiety, I've struggled a lot with thinking my life is never and will never go anywhere. I've learned to appreciate the time I have to just be. It won't always be like this, and I'm glad I have the time to do crafts and be slow and enjoy my time alone. I like that. And I like that you said be slow, because that's something that I struggle with, because I can, I can go full speed, I can go crazy, I can do a lot of things at once, and I can also turn it off, right? Like I love coming home. Like my ideal day off is running 15 to 20 miles with my dogs, coming home with an Impossible Whopper, right? Like like some kind of vegetable burger, and then just laying in bed and like recovering from the run and just not moving at all, just turning my life completely off for the rest of the day. That's the coolest thing in the world for me. And I don't know why. Like if somebody had concert tickets, but I was planning on running and then laying in bed all day, I would turn down the concert tickets because I just love doing that so much. But but that's stopping, right? That's completely stopping. So going slow is something I think that I've struggled with all my life, especially as a child with Tourette's and ADHD, and then going into a pretty hyperactive teenager into drugs and alcohol. Going slow is definitely something I've struggled with, and it's also something that I've struggled with, kind of stopping to smell the roses, I guess. Like, I think running is a pretty good metaphor for that, that I see all these amazingly beautiful things all over the world on these long distance runs, but I probably couldn't tell you about 10% of them because I'm just running past them. And I think that's a pretty good metaphor for how I live my life, because I'm always looking for that next thing, that I miss a lot of things that are going on right now. And I get these brief windows where I'm able to appreciate the present moment, brief windows, as opposed to either looking ahead at what I can do next or looking back at how cool something I did actually was. Um, so yeah, I like that you said that, to go slow, and to appreciate surroundings. And I mean, it's the in the super cliche like Ferris Bueller thing, right? Like if you don't, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around, you might miss it. Something like that. Um, this is so cool. I don't even think I had petted a cat before I was here. I didn't know anything about cats. I'd never been around them, never lived with one. I had no idea what to do. I saw all these memes on the internet about how cats are jerks, and like I just figured that, I don't know. I figured I would pet one too long and it would swipe my face or something like that. I guess maybe I was a little scared of them, but it's been so rewarding to have them kind of either fall in love with me or just tolerate me. I'm not sure which one yet, but to sit with me like this has been a pretty cool feeling. I love it a lot, and I don't think Jade knew how little experience I had with cats. Uh, she and I had actually never met. The woman who owns this cat, who owns this apartment that I'm in with my two dogs, we had never even met before. It's such a weird story. Somebody hooked us up on Twitter. They just like tagged us both and said, "Hey, you guys are both from Minnesota, and now you both live in Nashville. You guys should be friends." So she and I exchanged
on Twitter, and we kind of texted back and forth for a while, and it just kind of like faded out, and we never got together. But I saw her post something on Facebook about she's a she's a nurse, and actually has an awesome YouTube channel too, Backline, all one word, Backline, and then nurse. That's her Twitter and her YouTube. She does a lot of cool stuff from a nurse's perspective. But what she's doing and why I'm here for 6 whole weeks is she is on a movie set. On a movie set, this huge city, this huge like major motion picture, and she's not an actress. She's literally like a nurse on set. So she's giving COVID tests every day. I can only imagine like if somebody like I don't know breaks their leg or something that she would tend to them at that point. It's such a cool opportunity for her. I'm seeing these pictures on social media. It looks awesome, but it all happened like that, right? Like she got this offer and then was about to fly out in such a short amount of time. She couldn't find a cat sitter, so I just commented on her Facebook. I was like, "Well, you've never met me, but I mean, if you're like really desperate, I'd be more than happy. I'd be more than happy to do it." And it was like 2 days before she left, I think, that she hit me up and asked if I would and was gonna give me like all kinds of money and food and all this stuff. And I was like, no, it's straight. Just I'm gonna have a lot of fun with these cats. Don't pay me. Just as long as you're cool with my dogs coming here, right? Then it'll be awesome. Don't worry about a thing. And it's been great. It's worked out fine. I'm sure she had a lot of nerves about doing that because I was a complete stranger to her. She'd seen some of the stuff I do on social media, which might have made her feel a little bit better, but still a complete stranger in her home with all of her things and her cats. But it's been a lot of fun sending her pictures and videos every day. I just kind of think, if I was away from my dogs, what would I want somebody to do for me? And even better, she has rewarded me in a way that like is way better than money ever could be, and that's that she's let me use her car. Now I hadn't driven since 2012, and I don't think she knew that, but she lets me use her car, which has just been the coolest thing ever. Because I really don't like driving. I don't think I'll ever have a car again. But I feel stuck in this neighborhood a lot of times, and I've talked about that on streams before. How I love not having a vehicle, but I feel like my world is so much smaller than anybody else's because if it's not within 10 miles, I'm not going to see it, right? Like the Great Smoky Mountains, one of the great mountain ranges in all of the world is like 2 hours away, but I'll never see it because I'm not going to run there. And there's no bus that goes there. So having her car has been really awesome, being able to go out to different trails with the dogs, being able to see a couple of different parts of Nashville. It's been so rewarding to be able to go out and even just run different places and see new things. I don't think it's anything short of inspiring that when you see the same things every day for a full year, and then you get out to see something totally different. It's just entirely changed my viewpoint on Nashville, on my neighborhood, on everything. So being able to drive her car around a little bit over the past 6 weeks, mainly on my days off to go find a new trail, has been better than any amount of money she ever would have found while paying me. So it's been really cool. Let's see what you guys are saying. All right. Sydney says dogs rule, cats drool, and I think 6 weeks ago I probably would have agreed with you there. I just had all these preconceived notions about cats, which were completely shattered after a couple of days of being here and having them warm up to me. Now I'm still definitely a dog person because I want my pets to go out and adventure with me and do crazy stuff and get injured sometimes, I guess. But I don't know. It's just a different kind of love, I guess. Somehow, like you guys have never seen like MrsPuckett just sit on my lap and relax like this. It's just a different kind of love, I guess. And she sheds like just absolute. Oh, the shedding is just unreal. I don't know how Jade deals with that. Oh, Amanda, you know who Jade is. That's crazy. Okay, awesome. Andrea says, I like how Puckett Jr. doesn't really know what to do at this point. Go back to sleep or wait and see if the cat does anything cool. Yeah, it's really only recently, they play all the time, both the Pucketts, but with her wound, I've kind of got to like stop them from playing and he's been he hasn't fully understood that why, um, and I guess he's been a little more inactive as well, just because when we're home now, he doesn't get his indoor exercise, which is generally frustrating her or playing around with her. So it's been a transition for him as well, but he's been good. He's been staying away from her, and I set up a webcam the first 2 days at work, and just pointed it at my bed in my apartment to see what they did while I was gone. I really wanted to see if she was gonna lick her wound, if I actually needed to keep the cone on her, or if PJ was going to do something to it and disrupt. Um, but no, nothing happened. PJ was all over the apartment, but it seemed like he would get down and run around for 5 minutes, then come back and snuggle up next to her and do the whole thing over again. Like, it was so cool to be able to turn on and see that during the day. I don't know how I had never done that before. Being able to see my dogs, and now I feel like I need a security camera in my home, not for like robbers and murderers or whatever, but just so I can watch my dogs while I'm at work. So that was really cool. Kristen said she's going to Chattanooga to meet a friend Saturday. We need to meet up in Nashville sometime. Yeah, seriously. Hey, anytime you're in Nashville, I would meet up. Especially the weekends are a lot better for me. And especially now that I'm not working at 4 in the morning like I have been forever. Hopefully start full time in my new position shortly in about a week here, and be a pretty average work schedule of 8 to 5 Monday to Friday. I'm so stoked for that because I haven't had that since like 2016. I don't know. It's been a long time. It's been at least 5 years since I've had a Monday to Friday kind of 9 to 5 like normal job. So I'm super stoked about that and having weekends off. But yeah, Kristen, anytime you're here, I have a car now, but I don't know if I could drive. I don't know if I'd feel safe driving all the way down to see you where you live. But anytime you're in Nashville, just let me know. We'd love to meet you. Steve said, "Oh, I thought that garage apartment looked different." Yeah, it's so much nicer here. That was one thing. Like, Jade told me when I came, she's like, said something to the effect of, "Oh, it's super messy and dirty, and I'm embarrassed." And I walked in, and I was like, "This is the nicest place I've been in Nashville." Like, she has a dishwasher, and I did the laziest thing. I don't know if it's the laziest or the dumbest or the smartest thing ever. Washing dishes is like the bane of my existence. So, I mean, when I have guests over, I just take like the dishes out of my sink and just like throw them up in the cupboard and don't wash them. I just hide them. So and I don't really use dishes that much, so they probably haven't been washed in like a month. So I took an Amazon box and filled up all my dirty dishes at my apartment and put them in Jade's car and drove them over here and put them in her dishwasher. So I have completely clean dishes now. But I felt a little silly about actually doing that. But it's nice. I mean, she's got a washer and dryer in here too. Like, this place is awesome, and is really only about the same size as mine, but it's just way better laid out. I don't know, it's super cute in here. I like it. Amanda, I would go on a road trip anytime. That sounds awesome. Havelock, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming. No worries about being late. That's awesome. I'm happy you're here. Hey, Jareth, thanks for coming. I read that you and Tibby have been walking 10Ks. You've been being like super active. I'm proud of you. That's really awesome. It sounded like maybe you weren't doing that so much. I think I saw something on Reddit how Tibby or you maybe weren't the most active before. So that was cool to see that you guys have really been burning some calories and doing some things and doing them together too. That's really awesome. See you, Thomas. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, Mrs. Puckett does seem sleepy. So when we came home from the vet after her accident, she was on all types of painkillers, and now she's just on some heavy-duty anti-inflammatories, but those seem to make her pretty dull and tired as well. And then I also give her quite a bit of CBD in many different forms, whether it's oil or treats or whatever it is. I didn't really do that so much before the injury, but seeing as how that can help with some aches and pains and also just relax her when she's got all this pent up energy, you know, like as soon as I stand up, she will go crazy and want to go run 20 miles because she hasn't run in a week. But the CBD's been helping a lot, help her kind of, I don't know, I think make her a little more content with having to lay around all day. So that's been great. But she's almost done with the anti-inflammatory. She's almost done with all of her medications, and I think that's a good sign that she's starting to heal up a lot. All right, so nobody's judging me for bringing my dishes over here. That's good. Thank you, guys. Damage Monk spent the last 10 minutes researching super green powders. That's awesome. You know, I tend to stay away from the super ones. You know, there's a million products out there that companies will sell that's like, you know, will have like 100 different ingredients in it. That's like turmeric powder, and beetroot powder, and spinach powder, and algae, and all of this stuff. And a lot of times, most of that is just filler. Those end up being sold as supplements and aren't regulated as they should be by the FDA. So you'll find that oftentimes the ingredients don't match what's in the product. I have found definitely some good ones in my time, so you can always hit me up on social media. I'd love to share that with you because I'm a total dork about that stuff. But I think that's one reason I also just stay with just algae with single ingredient powders. It just makes me feel a little bit more secure about what's actually in the bottle, especially when it's coming from a reputable company. And I've been working at health food stores and co-ops since 2007, so it's been a long time, and you kind of get to see hundreds of companies kind of show up and get big, and then you know either get in trouble with their marketing and with their labeling or whatever it might be, and they just fall by the wayside. And very few companies that will last for 10 years at a time, or I guess now that's 15 years, and kind of stand the test of time. Mandu, good night. Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you. And it sounds like Jareth is going to start jogging soon too. That's awesome. It is such an amazing transformation to go, and especially to do it with your dog too. To go from a little bit more of a, what would I say, not as active lifestyle to starting to slowly work up, and let's see how your body and mind changes as you get a little bit more and a little bit more activity in, and especially being able to share that with either a dog or a loved one or whatever it might be. I'm a completely different person when I'm not able to run, you know, for a couple of weeks, and it's been a while since I've done that. I know last calendar year I had some issues with my chronic fatigue and wasn't able to run. And Mr. Puckett, you know, as he got a little bit older, wasn't able to run as much. So it brings me so much joy not to run. Like just running itself, it's not the coolest thing ever. Like it's super boring, right? It's not the most fun thing in the world, but all the benefits that it brings you and how I feel now, today, like at this second, because of how much I ran last week, and that's what it's all about to me. It's just how it makes me feel after the fact. I'm gonna have to rewatch this stream on like on a time lapse and just watch like the cats just like flying back and forth. Man, I don't know what I did before I had. Oh, what was that? She just slapped you in the face. What was that? She just slapped you. I don't know what I did before I had animals. I guess I probably watched a whole lot more TV to entertain myself. Andrea asked if I listen to anything while I run. Sometimes, but usually not. I'm really in constant communication with the dogs when we're running, especially downtown or especially on a really long, like a 20-mile run. Just constant talking to them, and um, and it's pretty unlike me because I don't give them direction when I'm at home. I haven't trained them in the home. Like neither one of them can sit or like do tricks or anything like that. It just that doesn't interest me at all. But when we're running, I mean, I can say a word and they'll turn right or left or stop. Um, they stop for water when I ask if they want water. Like they do all these things on a run because that's what's important to me. So it's a lot of communication out there that I found that music kind of interferes with a little bit. Um, but if I'm ever feeling super dull or like not into the run or maybe like getting tired way before I should be getting tired, then I will definitely throw on some music to pump me up for sure. Uh, but most of the run, probably 90% of it, is just quiet and talking to the dogs. Hey Kate, welcome. And the music too is so unlike me. I play folk music. I listen to folk and bluegrass and like really like kind of soft listening type of stuff. And it's sometimes like some upbeat bluegrass like Trampled by Turtles if anybody's heard of them. But when I'm running, it's all just like like super fast like hip hop and rap and like stuff that I would probably never ever listen to while sitting on the couch, but stuff that helps get me like super fired up when I'm out on a run. So I guess there's some interesting juxtaposition there on my Spotify because it's a whole lot of like Woody and Arlo Guthrie and like Pete Seeger that I listen to at home, and then like I don't know like Kanye and Macklemore and stuff like that when I'm out running. So. Okay, just came and hasn't seen the kitties yet. You just missed one, slapped Mrs. Puckett in the face. I don't know what that was about, or if you guys could see it on screen, but yeah, they've been in and out. They've been having fun. Yeah, Havelock the cleanup. That is crazy, and I mean, I'll have to clean up too because there's definitely dog hair everywhere, but I think most of it's cat hair. I thought I had it bad because Mrs. Puckett she sheds a lot, like even more than Mr. Puckett did, and way more than PJ, who for some reason doesn't seem to shed that much. But these cats are crazy. I washed the bed sheets before I used them, and then it was the first night the cat like slept way off in the corner in the bed and woke up the next morning and it was like a whole another cat that she left behind on the corner. Like I couldn't believe how much they shed, and then they're really rambunctious during the day too. So like I'll leave my dogs home alone when I'm at work, and they'll walk around the house, but for the most part they just nap. Whereas here at this house, when I leave the cats and I go to work and I come back, there's always stuff like thrown off, like they've broken. I've learned I can't leave plates on the counter because they'll swipe them off, and then there's glass everywhere, or like pencils on the desk. Like every time I've come here after work, there's stuff all over the floor that shouldn't be all over the floor. So I don't know if that's cats in general, which I think it is. They're just way more rambunctious and have left way more of a trail of stuff for me to clean up than the dogs ever have. Oh, Jareth is even switching to water instead of cola. That's awesome. You know, a much easier transition there is sparkling water. I'm a huge sparkling water nut. And if you need the sugar, put a shot of like apple juice or orange juice or something like that in there. It makes it a lot easier to transition off your soda. Amanda says she remembers when she did a half marathon a few years back and worried she wouldn't be able to survive it without music, but it actually helped you appreciate the scenery and encourage yourself to keep going. Yeah, and I was the same way. I think I started out, uh, I started out road running a little bit. I was training for a trail race, but I was in the city, so I was road running. But then I moved to the forest shortly after and started like exclusively trail running and dropped all the music and realized what a big difference it was. I felt so much more connected to the scenery out on the trail without music. I think city's a little different. I don't really ever feel connected to anything when I'm running in downtown Nashville because people are honking and like I've almost been hit like 100 times by cars who aren't watching where they're going. So your head is on a swivel, and I think there's probably just a little more adrenaline there. But being out on the trail
and just having to be completely quiet, just feel like you're part of something like so much bigger than yourself as you're running through it is such a wonderful feeling. But music definitely has its place at certain times. Jared said he posted some pics in the Discord. If anybody's not in the Discord, you can shoot me a note if you want to get in there. It's a ton of fun. I didn't know what the heck I was doing creating a Discord server, but it's been fun now that we've been in for, I don't know, maybe 3 months or something, and now that I know everybody's username and have some image in my head of who they are, or at least where they are and what they do, it's a pretty fun community, and there's there's not like millions of things put in there every day, but certainly pictures of pets and some check-ins of what people are doing. It's been pretty cool. I like having that Discord server, and I like having it where it is with about 150 people in there, maybe something like that, as opposed to something like I'm in a Discord server with Elbow Deep in a Horse, who a lot of you people know from Imager, and I think the last I saw there was like 8,000 people in her Discord server, and that's cool. I mean, there's a lot of people that know each other in there, but entering in that is so, I don't know, it's demanding. I think it's a little intimidating because there's no way I'm going to know all those people, and then the chat goes a million miles a second, and I can't keep up. So I really love the Mr. Puckett Discord and just kind of how it organically turned into what it is today, just by putting one link in Reddit, and I think I might have put it on Twitter for like 3 hours one time too before I took it down. But just the people that are in there, it turned out to be an awesome group of people. And if any of you are not in there and want to be, just shoot me a note on any social media platform, and I'll send you an invite. It's a really awesome, supportive place. It's been great. Yeah, Kristen, I could probably stay to do that. She said she loves hiking, but likes to go slow, looking for cool rocks and that. And that's even more so what I had been talking about before, where I wasn't stopping and taking a look around in life in general, but also specifically on things like running and being in the forest. How, like, I look back, we did this just a monster trail run when a pizza angel came here to pick us up and brought us out like 3 hours outside of Nashville to do the toughest trail in Nashville. And the whole idea was to run it, get this like crazy workout, and like conquer this trail, right, which is supposed to be the hardest. But I look back on some of my footage now and like how unbelievably beautiful it was. That I didn't really see a lot of it. Like we were on the peak, the top of it, for like 30 seconds, like just enough time for me to get this YouTube shot that I put in the next video, and like shots of the dogs running and all that. And it was a fantastic time. It was absolutely perfect, but. If I could go back and do it again, I would probably spend a lot more time looking around rather than looking through my lens, and maybe some more time walking, or at least maybe taking longer breaks to appreciate my surroundings rather than just kind of going all out the whole time and hoping for a faster speed. So that's definitely something I can learn and pick up too. Instead of running has its purpose to go far and to go fast for me. But I don't go out to these places to experience them enough, and I think that could probably bring me a lot of good by doing so, and bring me a lot of peace too, especially in these times where I feel a little bit down. I feel a little bit down in between projects. This helps. Yeah, so maybe I'll try to get out to a trail, especially with her recovery. That might be a perfect opportunity because she'll be walking before she's running again, so maybe we can get out to a trail and do some really slow miles once she heals up a little bit more. Kate said her entire life is covered in cat hair. Hadlock says he's trying ginger kombucha for that tart, tangy soft drink feeling. Also helps. We feel all virtuous. Yeah, kombucha's fantastic. I struggle with that sometimes myself because for me it really tastes like alcohol. And I mean, most kombuchas have, if not all kombuchas, have at least trace amounts of alcohol in them, and many of them have upwards of even 12% alcohol. I mean, they make kombucha beers now. unless you were to pasteurize it, which would kind of defeat the whole purpose of a raw kombucha. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a kombucha is essentially fermented mushroom tea, I guess would be a good way to put it. Take some tea, add a mushroom koji, add some sugar, and ferment it. So it's got kind of a vinegary taste to it, but because you're adding that sugar and oftentimes something like apple juice and fermenting it, it's creating alcohol. So, but it's got a ton of great health benefits. It's healthy bacteria for your gut. A lot of people don't like the taste. It's kind of an acquired taste, so if you don't like it at first, try a couple of them. You'll probably enjoy it by the time you have a couple of them. But for me, it's tough because a lot of times it does feel so heavily carbonated and that vinegary taste. It just kind of brings me back to that alcohol sensation, I guess. As healthy and as much as I would promote that product, something I don't really drink a ton of myself. Kate says we need to do a Discord video chat or game night sometime. I didn't know Discord had video chat. Before you were here, Kate, I was mentioning that I'd love to do a Skype session with everybody or a Zoom session. But if Discord could do it, that would be even easier. And it would be fun to do something like Jackbox. Jackbox is something a ton of fun. My friend used to do this all the time, especially when he was raising money for Extra Life. And that was do these Jackbox games, which is essentially like a virtual board game where people all over the world can play. So he would host it on his Twitch channel, and you could play right from your phone. You'd hook your phone up digitally, remotely to his game, and you could play with people all over the world. And it was such a fun experience to be able to watch his Twitch stream and play these games with Imagarians and people all over the world. I would love to set something like that, absolutely. And we could do that right here on YouTube, too. I mean, if he did it on Twitch, I don't see why we couldn't do it here. I'll have to look into that. That's a really awesome idea. Kate used to go barefoot hiking. We have to be super slow and careful. Wow. That's really something, and yeah, and if that's the point too, to slow down, to go barefoot, that makes a lot of sense. I have a lot of friends that did the barefoot running thing, which is a little more contradictory, but barefoot hiking, huh? Elijah Compton is here, no way. So what's up, Elijah? This is Elijah's one of my coworkers. Everybody say hi to Eli. I told him about my my YouTube channel some time ago, and evidently he subscribed and found out that I was doing a live show. So this is kind of funny. Again, a little juxtaposition of having my my internet family here, and then also having some work dudes here too. What's up, man? Thank you for hanging out. Yeah, and the free pizza dude too said he'd be able to host a game like that. So that would be awesome since we're all, we so easily come together in a space like this. And we're all just sitting here doing nothing. I think that would really add something awesome to be able to all play along, and that's something we could do right through Discord if we didn't need the video, or right here on YouTube, or Skype or Zoom or something like that if we wanted to be face to face. I think that's a really good idea. X equals penguin, welcome. Thank you for being here. So one thing I was going to do this week to try to break out of that slump I was talking about of coming down off of the charitable project and kind of like feeling like it's never going to happen again, is that it really just hit me today when I did the fundraiser and supply drive for the survivors of domestic violence facing homelessness. That was like one of the best ones ever. I think like 9 days we did $17,000 and 300 boxes of supplies to right here on my street in Nashville. But the way I found that was by going on my local Facebook page, my neighborhood page, and just asking people, putting a post out that says, hey, I'm looking to do a charity project that benefits somebody right here in the neighborhood. Who would you recommend that does a lot of good in our community that I could help with this project? And there were, I think, well, there was well over 100 comments, but I think the suggestions were probably closer to like 30 or 40.
So I thought about going through that again this week to try to find another cause worth supporting. Now I'm sure they're all worth supporting, but to find one that everybody around the world can get behind. And that's something I mentioned in the last video of how difficult it is to get people from different parts of the world to contribute to my own community when they could be contributing to their own. So there has to be some type of commonality there, some type of link to move people emotionally. And with Nashville Humane, that link was Puckett Jr. It was PJ. It was, this place saved my little dude, my little everything, and brought him to me. Would you please help them out? And everybody did. So it's somehow making that connection. Although I guess now that I'm talking, I realize that with the Mary Parish Center, they're survivors of domestic violence facing homelessness. I didn't really have that connection beyond my own 4 years of homelessness. I think that one got so big because so many people have been touched in one way or another, in a good or bad way, by domestic violence. And whether that's personally or by friends and family, that they wanted to give back in somebody else's name. And it was such a beautiful way to be able to do that, that it didn't seem like they were giving to my community. It seemed like they were giving, and they really were, to survivors of domestic violence community as a whole. So that was such a beautiful project, and I hope to find something that's that inspirational again, because that one, I shed so many tears during that project, seeing how far it went, and seeing how many comments and the messages that people gave me who had gone through their own experience with domestic violence and wanting to give back, and appreciating everybody else who was giving back. So it's that type of amazing inspiration that some people might only get a couple of times in their life, but I've been so lucky to get so many different times through people that message through these platforms, and that help out with all of these projects. So I guess the Nashville Humane thing kind of fell into my lap. I got contacted by them, so maybe instead of just waiting for the next project to fall into my lap, I could be a little more proactive to find one of these places that we can collectively support a cause that's especially worth standing up for. Fear Reaver says, my mom was a domestic violence survivor. She went on to be a peer advocate for a few years. I volunteered at the shelter she worked with. I helped the kids. It was an amazing experience. Oh, I bet that was an amazing experience. I have a lot of respect for that, because I get asked pretty often if I would ever either volunteer or consider working at rehabs and places, rehabs for lack of a better term, but all sober camps and sober homes and all the places that I went through to try to get sober, and it's just not something I can see myself doing or helping at yet, and I don't know why. So I commend you for being able to do that. On my end, I don't know why, because it's not like I'm scared to be with somebody who's using, because I'm definitely not 3 years into my recovery, but I don't know. I guess I'm afraid that I'm afraid of seeing that person fail over and over again like I did, right? And we said at the start of this broadcast that even though it's failure, it's not the end. It's just a stepping stone, and failure is a part of the journey, a part of everyone's journey to everywhere. But the emotional letdown that I caused in the people around me through those failures was just so significant, and I lost so many people. I lost just about everyone except for my parents and my sister through that whole thing, and my buddy Keith. That I think it'd be really tough for me to see somebody go through that. To see somebody go through, say, a 6-month rehab, and then get out with all the promise in the world, and to see him check back in 3 weeks later. I think that would just tear me up inside, and I don't think I have the emotional fortitude, I guess, to be able to be helpful in that situation. So I commend you for doing it on the domestic violence side. That's really incredible. Good night, Jared. Thank you for coming by, man. Give Timmy a high five for us. Whereas pretty much every project before came about somewhat organically, but they all came about on Imgur, and it was through through browsing user sub and seeing somebody in need, like I Am the Farmer, her farmhouse burned down, so it's like, all right, we're gonna get this back for you, we're gonna do this, or we're seeing somebody post about their shelter in Iowa and how they needed all of these things, and it was like, all right, we're gonna do this. So it came about randomly and organically, but it was a place where I could find causes, I guess, that I just don't necessarily have now. And I guess I could go on Imager and like browse user sub or whatever, but I'm not going to do that. But that's how so many of them came about in the last couple of years, with just browsing and seeing somebody who needed help and trying to figure out a way to help them, and then moving forward with it. So maybe that's something I can do too, is not only be more proactive in finding something, but find a way to find people in need and find, you know, all these places that might need a hand, like the Mary Parish Center did. Yeah, I don't know where that would be, but it's worth a shot to check it out. Hey guys, hey, Puckett, come on, back up, come. River said, it's interesting you talk about feelings and letdowns. One of the things with domestic violence is that a lot of victims will go back and end up in other abusive relationships. I had recently learned that through the project. There was this one young woman, mom I worked with, who was back and forth with 4 or 5 times in the 3 years I worked there. Some people don't understand the fear and power that abusers end up having. And yeah, I mean, I can't relate to that as much as I can say that that's a statement that was echoed many times by the people I met down at the women's shelter and by the director as well, that there's so much that goes into removing somebody from a situation like that because they want to be removed. There are so many emotional attachments, but also mental and emotional abuse that goes on that can lead these people right back into the arms of abusers. So like, that's why I love the Mary Parish Center so much, because it wasn't just this women's shelter. It wasn't just this women's shelter that would give housing. It was this comprehensive program that gave therapy and food and everything these women or men could possibly need to restart their life in a healthy manner. And some of these people had been out of the Mary Parish Center for 10 years and went on to do jobs and do amazing things in the community, but still came back for their therapy sessions at Mary Parish because it's just where they felt the most comfortable. So I guess I can have a little bit of understanding on how much work that might take, but definitely a whole lot of appreciation for how much work it takes. And I don't think it really relates to addiction at all, but you could say the same thing about how addiction is not just about stopping using. My old sponsor used to say that drinking and using drugs isn't your problem. It's a symptom of the problem. And we all have different problems that we're having the symptom of. And you know, a lot of times that's dual diagnosis, so people are self-medicating through drugs and alcohol. And there are a million reasons why somebody might use and either become addictive or are an addict to start out with. So yeah, it's got to be a comprehensive program where you're not just, you know, leaving your abuser, or you're not just putting down the bottle, but you're taking care of all the things that led to that, so to make sure that you don't end up back in that situation. So that's a really good point. Kate asked if I would be interested in an ongoing capacity with volunteer work in Nashville. I certainly would. I think it would have to be, and this might sound a little bit selfish, I think, but I think it would have to be the right opportunity. Yeah, that does sound a little bit selfish, but I guess I wouldn't volunteer just for the sake of volunteering. I do have free time, but I love spending it with my dogs and doing the things I love to do. So if I'm volunteering, I would love to have that sense that I'm actually making a difference and something that means something to me too, right? Like a lot of these supply drives and fundraisers have been for homeless shelters, because that obviously means so much to me as somebody who spends so much time in them. So I would love to do something with shelters or with the homeless community, or with I guess people who are not food stable. Something that has happened in my life or that I've gone through, and I could provide that insight to, and not just provide the hours to, I guess. So Yeah, I would love to, and I think that's one thing I would love to do with the Nashville Humane Association, to be on their board of directors, because I've had so much experience with shelter dogs who have been abused or neglected. Um, PJ's getting restless down here. He was thinking about setting something up in my community, such as getting excess food from restaurants and helping distribute those in need. Yeah, so that's exactly something that I would be interested in. Definitely, because we do have a very large homeless population here. And we do have a shortage of homeless beds. I can't speak to the percentages on that, and I know they're not quite as extreme as Minneapolis as well it was, but I know we do have more people on the streets than we do have beds in shelters in Nashville, and I would imagine it's probably that way all across Tennessee, whereas the last city I was in Columbia, didn't even have a shelter. We had a room in the inn, a shelter, and actually did a fundraiser for them. We raised $8,000 in 4 days and sent 200 boxes of supplies in early 2020, I think it was, to this room in the inn. But the city didn't want the shelter there, so the city told this church, so it's just a church with a basement. It's just a church with a basement, and they opened up their basement to anybody who needed a place to stay for the night, so the homeless community could stay there. But the city ended up shutting it down because the city said that they didn't want shelter in their city. So as far as I know, to this day, Columbia still does not have a homeless shelter, even though they do have a homeless population. So yeah, that'd be something I'm definitely interested in. I can't stand the sound of that plastic. I had to throw it. Andrea says, too many city governments think that's going to cause problems to make the criminals hang out there. Criminals. That is normal reasoning. Yeah, and that's essentially what it was. I actually gave a speech down there, and I think I still have this speech. I completely forgot about this until just now, after I did that fundraising. The church itself, not during a service, but after the service, a whole bunch of people in the community came there to who wanted the shelter, who wanted a shelter in the city, right? Like they wanted to help the homeless population, and I was lucky enough to be able to speak in front of these people and answer a bunch of questions too. It was a really cool opportunity because I didn't write anything down. I just kind of showed up and talked about how I was able to do the fundraising and supply drive, and then also, you know, why I did it, how I was homeless for so long. So there is a community there that wants to help. Like, you can't blame this on the city as much as you can say the city government doesn't want it there. Because I think I don't know if they, like you say, they think it'll become a hotbed for criminal activity, which I have not had that experience in any of the 4 years of my homelessness. It was people who were trying to get better and trying to get back on their feet for the most part. And there are sober homeless shelters too. Minneapolis was 50-50. Some were homeless shelters that were sober, where you actually had to blow into a breathalyzer and you got searched on the way in, and some of them were not sober. So if you were trying to get off the street and trying to stop drinking and all this, you could get into a fairly calm homeless shelter where there were no drugs and where there was no alcohol, and it's a homeless shelter. Like, I'm not going to say it's a positive place, but for what it was such a positive place, because it's a room of people who are so incredibly down on their luck, but everybody's trying their damnedest to get better. And looking back on it now, I don't think I saw that as a beautiful thing then, but I certainly do now. And I mean, I made it out, and I can only imagine a lot of those people made it out too, especially if they were able to stay sober. Kristen says that the McDonald's school is being closed. Really? I don't know how that's possible. Didn't they just get a grant? I thought they we'll have to talk about this off camera. I thought they had just gotten a grant for a new school, so I didn't think it was being closed. I thought they were just moving to a new one. Well, that was a big one though. That was like my first big supply drive ever. I had done some smaller ones before with like less than 100 packages, but the McDowell School in Columbia, Tennessee was my first real big one, where we had 350 packages that showed up for these underfunded classrooms, and it was also, don't quote me on this, I can't remember the exact
stat, but it was one of the Tennessee schools that had the highest rate of poverty for the children in the classroom. So it was just an amazing supply drive. We did nothing financially. We just sent them goods. But it was everything, I mean, it was computers, people said, and like clothes for the kids. It was just amazing how much stuff showed up. And I was living just down the street from the school at the time, so I was able to go down there and meet all the kids and meet all the teachers and see all the good that we were able to do. It was so cool. It was such an amazing experience. Somebody said, "Hey, Pucketts." I would say, "Hey" back. I don't even know how to pronounce your name. LSAI. I don't want to butcher this, but Lasai, thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here. The sound of chaos. Yeah, and I bet it sounds even worse because I have a microphone on, so that's why I've been trying to stop it. Let's see if maybe we can distract him with a sock. Usually his arch nemesis here. There you go. Yeah, and he has this much energy too. My friend finally got to see him, my best friend Zehart, stopped by after a 20-mile run the other day. I think that's what it was. But got to see him, it was like an hour after he had just run 20 miles, and he's doing laps in the backyard like he hadn't been taken for a walk in a week. Like it never stops with him. Never stops. All right, so we just hit the 2-hour mark. For any of you that were at my first stream ever, it ended abruptly because right at the 2-hour mark, my phone died, which is what I'm using for a camera. So if you'll excuse me for just a moment, I'm going to check the power on this so I can at least say goodbye if it is running low and not get that abrupt ending once again. Oh yeah, it's going to die any second. I got 1%, so I just want to thank you all so much for dropping by. Thank you so darn much. You guys make my week every time you come up to these videos, especially the live streams. Thank you so much. If you're not in the Discord server, hit me up on Twitter or Reddit or somewhere and we'll get you the link. Everybody in there has just been fantastic. Thank you guys for being here. I can't wait to do this again. I used to be so nervous to do this, but now I get so much joy out of doing it. So I'm going to say goodbye before this whole thing just turns off on its own. Thank you so darn much. I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. And if you need anything, I think most of you know how to reach me. So thank you, and I'll talk to everybody very soon.